Welcome to dojo.live, the place where top minds in travel and hospitality check in to share insights and breakthroughs shaping the industry. Brought to you by Ancora, your trusted partner for AI, cloud, and data-driven innovation. Enjoy your stay. Hello and welcome to another episode of Dojo Live. This Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. Here on Dojo Live, we have candid conversations with industry leaders tackling the biggest technology challenges in travel and hospitality. I am your host, Kim Lantis, and I'm excited because today we're diving into episode number 4 of our Powering Hospitality Insights from Hospitality's PMS Leaders series. Of course, we're not doing it alone, or I'm not doing it alone. Along with me is co-host Sridhar Padmanabhan. Sridhar, good to see you again.
Hey, Kim. Great to be here. Thank you.
Great to be here. Episode 4 already. And you know what we're going to be discussing today? Going beyond RevPAR to transform hospitality through guest-centric revenue strategies and taking a look at the PMS's role in making that happen. Here on those insights is our guest, Terrie O'Hanlon, SVP and CMO at Agilysys. Terrie, thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you.
It's great to be here. I'm excited to watch your series. I caught up on the other interviews that you've done, and I'm happy to contribute from Agilysys.
Oh, no, the pleasure is absolutely ours. Thank you. You know, we like to kick off our shows here in Dojo Live with our guest's journey. So I'd like to start there with you, Terrie. If you could talk a little bit about what drew you to travel and hospitality, to the industry in general, and of course, what excites you about the evolution of the technology supporting
Sure. I've been in tech marketing my whole career. Worked in a lot of different industries: retail, cybersecurity, supply chain, e-commerce, financial e-commerce. And but this is the first time I've worked in hospitality. But what I find so interesting about it is it's really underserved by all of the advancements that are applying to these other industries. And the thing that's exciting about that is you can, if you're with a company that has the pace of innovation and the influence and the ability to deliver real change in an industry. So that's what I find appealing about this. And if you think about it, hospitality is an industry where, in many cases, the people who work at their organizations have better technology at home than they have at work, where they're using it. And there's a mandate a little bit in this industry, I think, where the people who are interacting with you are consumers of technology that is offered up from other industries, whether it's retail or banking or healthcare even. And hospitality has to step up to what people expect, and the leaders in the industry are.
You know, I love that. And I couldn't have asked for a better lead into this next question for me and for our topic of conversation, because with your years spent, really helping businesses rethink technology, rethinking their revenue strategies, I am curious, you mentioned it yourself a little, what that biggest disconnect maybe between how hotels are measuring success today, where they need to go, the technology disconnect. But let's talk specifically about that measurement of success. And
sure. Well, I think if you step back from being a technologist and just look at hospitality, it makes sense that central to people's thinking has always been we're about property and people. That's how we delight guests. Our property delights them, our people delight them, and perhaps there hasn't been the sort of chore put on technology to deliver that delight. Now, of course, in other industries, people are realizing what technology can do and what they can expect, especially in the era of personalization. So it's kind of out of hospitality's hands, in a way, how much technology they bring to the table in interesting and personal ways. So in the past, and still now, and this is a relevant measure, of course, it's been revenue per available room. The focus has been on how can we monetize to the maximum capacity the money that we get out of a room. However, STR Global has a statistic that, especially in higher end properties, 40% of the revenue comes from outside the room. And by the way, probably, I don't have a statistic on this, but probably 95% of the relationship and the affinity for a property and the emotional connection to an experience of being at a property is outside of the room. And that's what matters, because people will return when they feel like their experience was personalized.
Right.
And that your room is not the center of where your attention should be.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, in most of the time, the room is basically a place to sleep and shower, at least in my experience. So I would definitely agree with that sentiment. Before I'm gonna hand the mic over here to Sridhar real quick, but before I do, I did want to talk about, so if RevPAR is the industry's, or has been, that gold standard of measurement for decades, it's only telling part of the story. You have a term that you'd like to coin then. It's not RevPAR, but
RevPAG, it's revenue per
RevPAG.
available guest. Well, and a little bit of an analogy here. If you think about, most people recognize Uber as a disruptive business, but sort of the core thing that they did is, vis-a-vis taxis, is think about monetizing the guest, not the cab, not the car. So it's like, how can we create, the Amazon effect kind of created personalization, immediacy, and convenience. Now we're all trained to expect that from every, moment of our day. And Lord knows, I feel sorry for people with young children. Mine are grown. So, but, that just accelerates, immediacy, personal convenience. And so Uber's been able to extend its business beyond rides to package delivery, food delivery, dry cleaning delivery, all these other things centered around, if I know Terrie O'Hanlon, and here's what I know about her, what are all the ways we can serve her in a personal way that's also profitable for us? And that's the mold that needs to be broken. So this is about, we have one of our customers who said when they began this transformation in their business, it's really not any more complicated than this. She drew a circle and wrote guest in the middle. And it's every single thing that we do with our technology, with our people, with our culture needs to tie into this. And of course, the property and the people have always been guest focused, but the technology has not. And that's the disconnect. So when you connect those things, you can do things like revenue per available guest, because you're thinking about, what does Terrie O'Hanlon like to do? How do I know about that? And then how do I automate experiences and offers in real time to Terrie? And how do I give my staff that view into it so that they say, oh, hello, Terrie, I know you have a spa appointment tomorrow at 1. Did you know we also have a happy hour that's happening at 3? You might want to go there right after you relax. And how does that person even know that? Well, because you've given them kind of a one pane of glass view into everything that the guest is doing. So.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
and go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, thinking about the Uber example, we don't have to, there's not this fear either of completely letting go of RevPAR, because there's still a lot you can do inside the room. Because let's say, you talk about delivery examples of Uber, but then there's also, what kind of car do you want?
Yeah.
Are you looking for a
That's
sustainable
exactly right.
one, the fastest one, a larger one, etc.?
Yes.
So it's
and
like, we can still think in the room, but we have to also think.
Yes, and lots of properties are looking at how can we do better attribute-based pricing, which is exactly what you talked about for Uber. If you want these different things, how do we monetize them, and how do we create offers that are likely to be appreciated and accepted? Because if you're making an offer to someone who, no, I like the standard room, they could feel like, oh, they're always marketing to me. That's the secret of marketing. It should always be a give, not an ask, so that when someone sees the offer, they're like, oh, they know me. They know I'd like, the corner room with the king, certainly for just, $20 extra, sure. So go ahead, Sridhar.
Yeah. No, I think, having traveled quite a bit, and also being part of the industry, I've always wondered, well, outside of rooms and dining, what strategies can hotel use, to get into the per available guest kind of a thing, right? Because,
Mhm.
you know, every time they're just about to step out of the hotel is no longer engaged in that experience in
Right.
any way. Maybe you ask the concierge for a couple of recommendations, restaurant recommendations, theater recommendations, whatever they want to do, right? So what do you see changing, or what do you see happening in industry, Terrie?
Well, so lots of properties are interested in the concept of packages, right? So people are interested in experiential travel is sort of the word that's out there. And the package can be around anything. The Super Bowl is in New Orleans. How can we have, the touchdown package? But one of the things that makes doing that complicated for some organizations is when the guest, signs up for it, they can't book everything that's offered in the package all in one sitting. You can book your room, but then you have to call the spa to get the spa. You have to do the restaurant system is somewhere else. And so the things that Agilysys is working on is how do you present to the guest, this one session, book it all experience, and the only things they're seeing are the things that are covered in their package, because sometimes the package is offered, it's explained, but when you're going to all these systems, people may inadvertently book things that aren't covered in their package and then have a negative surprise when they're checking out. Like, let's say the package included a 60-minute massage, but they booked a 90-minute or whatever, there's that. And then also making sure that every single amenity is actually that's included in the package is actually booked, because sometimes people book a package and they figure, oh, I'll do the other things later, not booking all the other amenities, and then that goes unused, and you feel like that wasn't really worth it. So there's that, making it the perfect experience. You've got the exact value, no negative surprises on the checkout, and your staff sees that same single itinerary. Here's, Terrie O'Hanlon and the touchdown package, and here's everything she's doing. So when you check in, let's say you check in personally, the staff person knows it. You check in on the kiosk knows it. And so everybody's saying, hey, we're glad you're here for the touchdown package. And then, of course, the package would try to entice people to do more, spend more, stay longer on the property, as opposed to outside the city. But you can form partnerships with, let's say there's a super cool sports bar 4 doors down. You can create a co-marketing program with them. And then the people feel like, we had a concept, well run, well loved. And we're like, all technology makes things better run, well run. And when you go to a property, you're like, yeah, they're well run, spit spot, everything. But when a property can have the opportunity to go the extra mile and really know you, and also then be connected to the community around them, then you're like, you don't just go, yes, that's a well-run property. You go, I love that place. They know me. Every time I'm there, I feel like I'm at home. And there are things you can do in the room, like allowing people to stream their Netflix and those kinds of things, where everything they can do in their living room, they can do in their hotel room. That's an advantage. But stepping outside of that to actually monetize more personalized experiences on property, or with connected experiences with your community that fit with the package, I think is good. That was a long answer.
Actually, and see, what you're describing is what the guest wants and how the hotel can enable that. I think, which kind of leads into how does, our property management systems now enabling that as well to help the hotel enable that,
Our technology systems, is that
because while the hotel, the general managers, the front office staff, the concierge, everybody wants to do exactly what you said.
Sure.
But how do they move from we want to offer to, hey, we want to offer, track, make it part of the guest experience record? So our PMS is stepping up. What do you see happening?
Well,
maybe they've already stepped up and I don't know, right? So
no. I think no. In fact, we did a global research study that showed that hospitality, unfortunately, is pretty laggard when it comes to deploying technology for those reasons I already said. We're a people property business, and we haven't really, and a lot of people feel like technology might possibly disenfranchise the guest or the staff, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the statistic I was going to share is 45% of the properties that are in this global study have a PMS system that's 5 years or more, and many have way more. There are people operating with technology that's 30 years old, and retail was that way for a very long time until Amazon came along. Retail was operating on AS400s. The systems were rock solid. You can count on them. They're not going out. But what they couldn't do is let you, click at 10 and get it by 2. And so if Amazon, people started seeing their, retail sales, people stopped going to the store, and, oh, I forgot it was my sister's birthday. I don't have time to run, to a store. And the online systems, many retailers had completely separate e-commerce systems than in-store systems. So they didn't know where the inventory was actually caged off in a warehouse. No, this is e-commerce inventory. If you think about how crazy that is, it should be fungible between our sales e-commerce or our physical stores. But because people were incented, if you think about same store sales, and then the e-commerce was a different business, there was no incentive to share information or share transactions or any of that. So retail was very backward until, not backward, it was stable. It was stable. It was like, our stuff works, and this is all we need to do. And then someone comes in and changes the game, and you're like, gosh, I guess we better do more. So there's lots of old technology that's out there. And I think what's required is, vendors need to help properties understand that technology is an enabler for your guest when you're offering self-service, and for your staff. And it really allows the kind of segmentation of behavior that happens in these other industries. Some guests want to be all digital. I don't want to talk to anyone. I want to be able to check in. I want everything that I can book on my mobile phone in one guest app. I want to be able to book real time, see that, oh, if I can get over the spot in 15 minutes, I can book that. I don't need to call anyone or do anything. You're serving them better by giving digital a chance to serve them. And some people want to talk to the people at the front desk. And so that's what we need to do, and be able to have all that information about the guest available in a single place for staff to interact with, so they're smarter. And people who are in this industry want to serve in remarkable ways. But the world is so complicated now. You need, a little bit of help from the data and the technology in order to be perceived by the guest as remarkable. Like, oh my gosh, Sridhar remembered my name, and Kim remembered that I'm golfing tomorrow. Well, it turns out they had a little tablet that's with them, and they know who you are, and they were looking it up real time.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think I would like to get into some of those real stories of hotels and the technology supporting them, technologies like Agilysys, in just a minute. But before we do, I'm curious, because you're talking about, and this is part of what was your title of today's show, this Aspiration-Reality Gap.
Yeah.
So we touched on this already about hotels basically knowing they need to evolve, but struggling to get there. And I'm curious if this is primarily a mindset issue, like, oh, it's going to be so hard, or it's going to be so expensive, or if it's just a technology challenge, like Sridhar was kind of alluding to, in terms of like, can it even do what I want it to do? Is it just a simple lack of clear guidance of how to get from A to B? What's really holding hotels back from fully embracing these guest-centric revenue strategies that you've outlined for us today? And how are PMS like Agilysys stepping up to that challenge?
Sure. And well, like Sridhar said, when I went into that very long explanation, he was like, right, everybody wants to deliver that. So when you describe, the perfect experience built around a package, it's not difficult to understand, and no one's going, what a revolutionary idea. Everybody's like, well, of course we want to do that. So in our global survey, 82% of hotel executives understand the value of doing that, but only 56% feel like they're technologically ready. And the reason they aren't has to do with what some of your guests have said, where, the technology has been primarily purchased in silos, and silo isn't even the right word. It's been like, it's a bit purpose built. Let's get something for a spa. Let's get something built for a golf course. Let's get something built for our restaurants. And it makes sense when the operative value is you're assuming people and property. You're not saying, and our technology all needs to connect back to that guest in the same way, so that the golf course knows the same thing that the spa people do, that the cabana rentals do, that the restaurant does, that housekeeping does, all of the touch points. There was not, it didn't, the central premise was never, we need connected data to do it. So there's lots of ways to approach the change, but your question was, what's getting in the way of the change? And one of our customers, Judy Blackburn she's the COO of Watergate, and I mentioned this kind of in the beginning, where when she enacted this program for change, just drew that simple circle and put guests in the middle, and had it's a change in culture.
Right.
And in how success gets measured. And I would add another little circle outside of the guests, and I would put staff around that, because there are staffing challenges, no doubt. And I think serving the people you want to serve, your guests, serving them well with the technology tools that equip them to be remarkable deliverers of hospitality is a real mandate. And it's also it's considerate of your staff, to equip them in a way that upholds the brand of your property. So not everything needs to be remarkable in a 5-star way. Some properties, you're a businessman. I want to check in. I want to check out. I don't want any hassle. So you would sort of, when we look at our guests, we're focused on convenience, and then things like reliable internet in the room, and do you need a sort of a business concierge for the guest that's there, as opposed to, do you want a cabana, upgrade or whatever. So I think everybody is a different thing. We serve a lot of casinos, and there it's like options, because it's such high capacity guests, and people have been deploying our kiosks, which can offer like real time upgrades when you're checking in based on who you are. Are you like a star player here, and we really want to take care of you? Then if the data knows that, you can present in real time special offers architected for that particular person based on who they are, that they can immediately accept. We're all in this sort of impulse buy. We've been trained for the impulse buy by retail. And what can hospitality do to do the same thing, where the offer really is a give, not an ask? And someone's like, wow, I feel understood. Some people have never been to the casino before may want to check in with a person so they can have a conversation about stuff. So we, I told you I would give you some stats and facts if you let me look at my cheat sheets here. And
yes, please.
Please, I mean,
cheat. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my God. And the one that I'm looking for, this is embarrassing. Actually, I actually know this one by heart. So one of our one of the casino properties that we serve, Circus, was able to decrease the amount of time that it takes people to check in by 90%. It was because you offer the opportunity for a kiosk. Like if you just have a kiosk, our human nature is like, what the heck? Where are the people? I want to check. But if you have your standard check-in desk and people, but then offer kiosks, and what they do, this is super cool. They have QR codes on the wall in the parking deck. So you park, and it's like, you want to check in here? do it on a, put it on a QR code. You're all checked in, and okay, your digital key is on your phone. No need to go anywhere, but straight to your room and get down to the floor, and think
And
about.
as a parent, and I imagine that a lot of the people who go to Circus in Las Vegas have kids in tow.
That's true.
And it's like, oh, if I could just skip the lobby altogether and get my tired, cranky kids to the room and get ready to get on with this show, more power to me.
So that is what's so fun. Every property is going to be unique. It is not one size fits all. So I think what Agilysys excels at is listening. We have a professional services team, and the brand for it is serious about service. And we don't call it serious about services for a reason. We're serious about service. Let's talk about what your property values.
Right.
What's in the way of having perfect guest experiences? Where do you see the opportunity to elevate revenue? And I think one of our advantages actually in the PMS space is that we actually serve industries that have nothing to do with rooms. Our solutions serve, corporate dining, higher education, get campuses, lifestyle communities. So if you think about that, you're not trying to elevate revenue per room at all. You're trying to elevate the revenue that comes from all the touch points of the people who are interacting on a college campus. So I think innovations that we've built based on listening to people who don't have room at the center of their focus, but they have the service to an individual at the center, we can take those innovations and then move them into the areas that are dependent on a room. But I think we've had more of a push to develop those kinds of capabilities, especially around mobility, security, QR codes everywhere, that kind of thing, around immediacy.
So Terrie, I experienced that at the Link in Vegas, right? It's a Caesar property, and I saw the combination of kiosk and the check-in counter. I hadn't really seen that a lot because even when I go to Vegas, I kind of stay away from the strip simply because it's a time overhead to get in and out of properties and things like that. So, but I did see it, and I knew that it was an Agilysys. I got the emails. I was able to check in online and give them the information, scan the QR code at the kiosk. So, and I could see that it was Agilysys, and I was like, obviously it wasn't in preparation for this conversation, but
that's cool.
That's pretty cool. So, Terrie, I'm going to ask the AI question only because not asking the AI question is kind of, in this, it's 2025.
We have to.
So, but at the same time, front office, mid office, back office, do you see AI helping either guest experience or stitching things together in the back end, or, end of the day, it's about the guest, but what do you see, either hotels asking for or companies like yours trying out in the AI space?
Sure. There's a couple of areas, and I guess I'll touch on sort of revenue management area, and then sort of the 24/7 service when you can't have staff there doing that 24/7. I'll touch on those two areas. So in revenue management, like if you have real-time knowledge of the capacity that's available right then, the status of the person who's trying to book a room and the revenue associated with whatever is booking, and all that algorithm math is happening in the background and guiding what actually gets presented to the guest to do. That's a really practical application of math that's happening and you don't even have to it's AI. It's AI because it learns, over time. And you can, as you look at the revenue optimization model, you can make adjustments to things on the back end, and there's a continuous learning that's going on in the math that's driving the decisions. But I think that's a natural application. So in spa management, we actually have the ability to understand what services are most profitable, what the most popular times for those services are, and then when we are going to be staffed to deliver those services, and use all of those variables together to present what somebody can book online. So that's, and another thing there that's sort of more in terms of taking care of your staff, we have something called minimum gap, where different therapists can say, I don't want to present something able to be booked if it leaves too big of a gap in my schedule, because I'm coming to work. I don't want to sit around cooling my heels. Well, so optimize my schedule for me, my ability to earn revenue, tips and such. So that's kind of cool, because I think for a person to do that and try to, especially if the property is large and there's lots of different spa services to book and lots of different times, it would be way too hard. But so people really appreciate that. And then the ability to have like AI concierge booking, or the other thing is service, like, the requesting of things 24/7, and you're talking to not just some static system that's telling you the hours things are available or whatever, but is actually letting you transact. Right, and so you can book it at that time. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. You're speaking. If you have a voice to text conversion, you're either you're speaking or texting. Hey, how many cabanas are available? How close is that cabana to the food, or whatever you want to ask, and then go ahead and book it. So that's the other thing that is kind of missing in terms of service that AI and really sophisticated technology can help with, is often our systems let our guests get information, but then you can't close the deal. You can't see and act, and so there's this sort of satisfaction that comes from, not only did I see it, I booked it, the data flows through the staff, your guest profile shows that you booked it, and the next morning when you're talking to staff or at breakfast or whatever, you can say, people can go, oh, I see you're going to do our cabana. You're going to love that. Because there's also research that shows when staff has in our research, it showed when staff has a personal conversation that reflects either a memory of a previous conversation or what they're actually doing, their satisfaction at the property we all just want to be understood.
Exactly. Thanks, Terrie. That's something that I'll come back to later.
That was kind of a fire hose. Sorry about that. But it does.
That really caught me. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it has such great potential, and I think that people may try to make it it's a big thing, no doubt, but you don't need to make it bigger than it is. AI, and it's not going to replace humans in hospitality. All the chatter that's out there. Oh, work's going away because it's going to be done by robots and technology. I think, no, just think about everything that makes we people better when we know the technology, when technology enables us with information.
Mm-hmm. I love it, because I think looking ahead, you see this guest-centric revenue strategy in the future being more just about not just the what could be, but now the what is. So we're going to turn it way more actionable. And I guess with that as our final question today, then, what should hotels be doing now to kind of stay ahead and get prepared? And if you could give those leaders maybe one piece of advice on transforming their revenue strategy, what would it be?
So I'm going to I know this won't surprise you that it'll be one piece of advice with a lot of words, unfortunately, but they should draw that circle.
Peas in a pod.
Yeah. So they should draw that circle. It's marketing. It does it to us. Anyway, they should draw that circle with the guests. My advice would be draw another circle around it, staff, and then go to each area of your business and say, if you had as your goal aspirationally to serve both the guest and the staff working here in a remarkable way, what would you want to be able to do that you can't do today? And what is really frustrating. So both aspirationally, I'd love to do this, but I can't because of this. And then even if I didn't want to do this, just in my standard stuff, this is what causes anxiety and frustration, because it's very hard to, serve with a smile when you're frustrated. And so you would gather all of that together. And then my advice would be crawl, walk, run, because in what areas of your business you're going to change. Because another reason that there's not sort of this wholesale, yes, let's adopt it, makes sense, is because hospitality is a 24/7/365 business. And the same research that showed, yes, everybody gets, we would love to be able to measure and deliver on revenue per available guest. And by the way, making personal profitable, that's having some discernment about who you offer, these special things to, and is it going to really drive loyalty? And everybody does that. Our technology providers, our TV service providers, everybody has all that data going on in the background to say, who are we going to elevate? Because we know if we do, we'll buy more. But anyway, go through that and say, let's do this, a bit at a time, and not expect some sort of holistic transformation, because you have to move your technology and your processes in lockstep with your culture. And I think it would be quite shocking if somebody were to do, when you change things that are well established overnight. We do have customers like Lajitas Golf Resort, they're very remote, and they bought, everything, because their technology was so old in every department. The people were frustrated with it, and they want to give a very high-end experience. And so they did holistically change, but their culture, the people were already asking for change. And I think in many properties, it could be that a staff person would feel, oh, they must not think we're doing a good job, because they think you have to be very careful about the human. I mean, hospitality is a very human business. And so that's the advice in very long. Because some industries, you're just like, rip it out and replace it, like supply chain. They don't really care about that. I mean, they care about their workers, but of more importance is, without, product, no commerce happens. So we're prioritizing sort of the non-frictionless flow of goods to where they're supposed to be, and the people just have to get on board. Whereas I think in hospitality, as I said, the property and the people are central to the culture, and so that needs to be honored.
I love it. Involve your people in the technology process. And I think the crawl, walk, run analogy is also really great. And the okay, all sounds great, but when? And as you can. And I think that's amazing.
That's why we have our products organized like in ecosystems or something. Like PMS is in the center, and then we have these sort of additive, we call them experience enhancers around the PMS. And we have our POS system. We have experience enhancers around that. We have our inventory and procurement system. We have experience enhancers around that. So you could decide just to evolve in that ecosystem, or you could say we want our PMS and our POS to be, talking to each other. And you, of course, with Happy and other things, Open API, you can do that. The thing that I would say about that is it's about more than the connection, although that's very important, because you don't want anyone to have to rip and replace holistically. Over the long term, you do need to make sure that these systems are innovating at a pace that keeps up with what guests expect and, frankly, what staff expects. And then they're prioritizing what gets innovated on. So let's say you're making AI a priority, is everybody, if all the different systems are innovating AI at the same pace, then even if you connect them, you're not going to be able to have that seamless experience. So, yeah.
Very good point. Well, Terrie, that is a wrap on today's episode of Dojo Live. A big thank you to you, Terrie O'Hanlon of Agilysys, for sharing kind of why that RevPAR to RevPAG, RevPAG revenue per available guest is key to
Rolls right off
unlocking.
the tongue. That's the problem.
Yeah, I love it.
Circle,
Really key to unlocking true profitability, but also that I think it's just the guest-centric nature of the conversation that we had throughout today.
Yeah.
Was spectacular. Before we go, if the audience would like to reach out to you for more information or Agilysys to see about all your cool add-ons, what would be the best way to do that?
So my personal email is terrie.o'hanlon at agilysys.com, and it's TERRIE .OH. It's on the screen.
Yeah,
so just send me an email, baby. But actually, feel free to text me at 678-559-6763. Our CEO Ramesh Srinivasan is famous for giving his personal cell phone number out to our customers. So in the spirit of that, so does the rest of the executive team.
All right, amazing. Fantastic. We hope you get a lot of those messages headed your way as a result of today's conversation. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, the sponsor of Dojo Live, Encora, for making these amazing conversations possible. Encora does partner with leading travel and hospitality companies to accelerate innovation through world-class engineering solutions. And of course, if you enjoyed this conversation, do follow us on Dojo Live for more. We've got insights from industry leaders always coming your way. You can also catch those past episodes on our website, dojo.live, across a variety of socials like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and more. And about what's next, we have another show coming up tomorrow, April 3rd, also at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific. We're going to be diving into holiday parks, or as we know them in North America, campgrounds and hotels, to see what they can learn from each other, operational strategies as a way to boost efficiency, guest satisfaction, and overall revenue performance. That is with Siggy Schrodt, who is the VP of Sales of EMEA at RMS. So until then, stay curious, stay innovative, and bye for now. Terrie, thank you.
Hey, goodbye, Sridhar. Goodbye.